The package arrived on a Tuesday morning, wrapped in expensive silver paper with a red velvet bow that screamed overcompensation. Elena Calloway stared at it sitting on her desk like a small bomb, the return address label making her stomach twist. Of course, Ryan would send something to her office. Their office. Well, his father's firm, technically, where she'd worked for 3 years before their spectacularly messy breakup 6 months ago. The same firm she'd quit 2 weeks after said breakup, unwilling to endure the pitying looks and whispered gossip. You going to open it? Or just glare it into submission? Elena glanced up at her new boss, who leaned against her doorframe with the casual elegance of a predator pretending to be domesticated. Lorenzo Valenti didn't do anything as pedestrian as stand or walk. He occupied space the way a storm occupied sky. Completely, and with the implicit threat of destruction. I'm considering my options, she said, turning back to her computer screen. Option 1, trash. Option 2, return to sender. Option 3, ceremonial burning. No option for opening it? Why would I reward bad behavior? She felt, rather than saw his smile. Lorenzo had that effect. His presence was tactile, like standing too close to a fire. In the month since she'd started as his executive assistant, she'd developed a sixth sense for his moods. Right now, he was amused, which was infinitely preferable to the cold focus he employed when someone disappointed him. What makes you assume it's bad behavior? He moved into her office, and she caught the scent of his cologne, something dark and expensive that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Maybe he's apologizing. Ryan doesn't apologize. He explains why his behavior was actually reasonable and I'm being emotional. Sounds like a real prize. Why'd you date him? Elena finally looked up, meeting those unsettling dark eyes that seemed to catalog everything. Why does anyone date the wrong person? He was charming, successful, came from the right family, checked all the boxes. Except the one that mattered, which is whether you actually wanted him. The observation landed with uncomfortable accuracy. Elena leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. That's incredibly presumptuous. That's a yes. Lorenzo moved closer to her desk, his attention shifting to the package. How long ago did you end it? 6 months. And he's still sending gifts. Persistent or delusional? Both, probably. It's Christmas next week. He always goes overboard for holidays. Let me guess. Expensive jewelry you didn't want. Designer handbags in colors you'd never wear. Perfume he liked but you didn't. Elena blinked. Are you psychic or just experienced with terrible gift givers? I'm observant. You don't wear jewelry except those small gold hoops. Same ones every day. Your handbag is quality but practical, black leather, at least 3 years old. And you smell like jasmine and something citrus. Subtle enough it's probably just your shampoo, which means you don't wear perfume. Heat crept up her neck. She'd known Lorenzo was observant. You didn't build an empire like his without noticing everything. But having that attention focused on her was unnerving. That's borderline creepy, you know. Would you prefer I didn't notice you? The question hung between them, loaded with subtext she wasn't ready to examine. Elna stood, needing the distance, and moved to the window overlooking downtown Boston. December snow fell in lazy spirals, coating the city in temporary innocence. I prefer professional boundaries, she said finally. Liar. She turned, finding him closer than expected. He'd moved silently, the way he always did, and now stood near enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. Lorenzo was tall, 6'3", maybe 6'4", with the kind of build that came from actual physical work, not gym vanity. His suit was impeccable, charcoal gray with subtle pinstripes, but she'd seen the gun he wore under his jacket. She wasn't naive about what he did. Excuse me? You don't want professional boundaries. You want safe boundaries. There's a difference. His gaze dropped to the package still sitting on her desk. Are you going to open it? I hadn't planned on it. Good. He moved past her, and before she could process his intention, Lorenzo picked up the package and walked out of her office. Elena followed, her heels clicking against the marble floor. What are you doing? He didn't answer, just continued down the hall to his own office, a massive corner space with floor-to-ceiling windows and furniture that cost more than most cars. He dropped the package in his trash can with decisive finality. You can't just throw away my mail. I didn't throw away your mail. I threw away garbage. Lorenzo turned to face her, his expression unreadable. You don't want it. He doesn't deserve the satisfaction of you agonizing over whether to open it. Problem solved. That's not your decision to make. You're right. It's yours. So make it. He stepped closer, and Elena held her ground despite every instinct screaming at her to back up. Do you want it? That's not the point. That's exactly the point. Do you want anything from him? His gifts, his attention, his apologies that aren't really apologies? No, she admitted, the word coming out sharper than intended. No, I don't. Good. Lorenzo's eyes locked on hers with absolute certainty. Because from now on, you only accept gifts from me. Understood? Her breath caught at the possessiveness in his tone, the way he said it like it was already decided. Lorenzo. Understood? He repeated, not raising his voice but making it unmistakably a command. Yes, she whispered, hating how much the word felt like surrender. Good. His expression softened slightly. Then why are you defending him? I'm not defending him. I'm defending my right to make my own choices. Something flickered in Lorenzo's expression. Approval, maybe, or satisfaction. Fair enough. The trash can is right there. You want to dig it out? Go ahead. I won't stop you. They stared at each other, the challenge clear. Elena's pride warred with her practicality. The package probably contained something expensive and thoughtless, chosen by Ryan's assistant because he couldn't be bothered to remember what she actually liked. She didn't want it. She'd never wanted his performative gestures, but letting Lorenzo make that decision for her felt like ceding ground she couldn't afford to lose. This is ridiculous, she muttered. Agreed. So stop making it complicated. You're my boss. You can't just... She gestured vaguely at the trash can. Throw away my personal belongings. Tell me to fish it out, and I will. That's not the point. Then what is the point, Elena? Her name in his mouth did something unfortunate to her nervous system. Lorenzo rarely used it, preferring to simply catch her attention with a look or a gesture. Hearing it now, low and deliberate, made her acutely aware of how alone they were in his office, door closed, the rest of the building quiet as people focused on their work. The point is boundaries, she said, fighting to keep her voice level. Professional boundaries that you keep ignoring. I ignore them because you don't actually want them. You're awfully confident about what I want. I'm observant about what you want. He moved closer, not touching her, but near enough that she could feel his body heat. You want someone to see you, actually see you, not the version you present to make things easier. You want someone who doesn't ask permission for every little thing because you're tired of being treated like you're fragile. You want... Stop. Her hand came up, palm against his chest, and the contact sent electricity through her arm. Beneath her fingers, she felt his heartbeat, steady and unhurried. You don't know me. I know you better than he did. You've known me a month. And in that month, I've learned you take your coffee black because you actually like the taste, not because you're watching calories. You're left-handed but use your mouse with your right hand, which means you taught yourself to adapt in a right-handed world. You're brilliant with logistics, but you second-guess yourself in meetings until you realize no one else has a better solution. You have a scar on your right hand. His fingers brushed her wrist, feather-light. Shaped like a crescent moon, probably from childhood, and you haven't been happy in a very long time." Elena's breath caught. She should step back, should establish those boundaries she kept insisting on, should do anything except stand here letting her boss touch her wrist while he cataloged her secrets. "That doesn't give you the right." "I'm not claiming rights. I'm stating facts." His thumb traced the scar he'd mentioned, the touch deliberate. "You don't want his gifts. You don't want his attention. So stop pretending this is about choice and admit it's about control." "And if I want control, then take it." He released her wrist, stepping back, and the loss of contact felt like cold water. "The package is in the trash. Your choice what happens next." Elena looked at the trash can, then back at Lorenzo. He watched her with that unnerving focus, waiting, and she realized this was a test, not of her loyalty or her compliance, but of her honesty. With him, with herself. She walked to the trash can, looked down at the silver-wrapped package with its ostentatious bow, and felt absolutely nothing. "I don't want it," she said quietly. "I know. But you had no right to throw it away." "I know that too." She met his eyes, finding something there that made her pulse quicken. "If you ever do something like that again, you'll quit, find another job, go back to playing it safe with men who don't see you." His smile was sharp. "But you won't, because you're tired of safe. You're incredibly arrogant." "I'm incredibly right." Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Probably her mother calling about Christmas plans, or her sister asking about her love life, or any number of normal things that felt absurdly distant right now. She ignored it. "I should get back to work," Elena said, not moving. "You should." "We have the Marchetti meeting at 2. "We do. And I need to finalize the contracts for the waterfront property." "You do." Neither of them moved. The snow fell heavier outside, coating the windows, and somewhere in the building a phone rang. Normal office sounds, normal office day, except nothing about this felt normal. "Why did you really throw it away?" Elena asked finally. Lorenzo's expression shifted, something dangerous sliding behind his eyes. "Because you're mine to protect now, and I don't let anyone disrespect what's mine." The possessiveness in his tone should have alarmed her, should have sent her running for HR, for her resume, for anything resembling common sense. Instead, it sent heat pooling low in her stomach. "I'm your employee," she said carefully, "not your possession. Keep telling yourself that, Bellezza. Maybe eventually you'll believe it." He turned away, dismissing her, and Elena fled to her office on unsteady legs, very carefully not looking at her trash can on the way out. Her phone buzzed again. This time, she checked it. "Ryan, did you get my gift? We should talk. I miss you." Elena stared at the message, then at her closed door, beyond which Lorenzo Valenti had just casually demolished 6 months of careful emotional distance. She deleted the text without responding and got back to work, pretending her hands weren't shaking. The Marchetti meeting went sideways within the first 10 minutes. Elena saw it coming the moment Antonio Marchetti walked into the conference room with his nephew trailing behind him like an overeager puppy. She'd prepared for Antonio, the patriarch of Boston's second-largest construction empire, a man who'd built his fortune on legitimate contracts and carefully laundered money. What she hadn't prepared for was the nephew, whose eyes locked onto her with the kind of interest that made her skin crawl. "Lorenzo." Antonio clasped hands with her boss, the greeting more warmth than business associates usually shared. "Good to see you. This is my nephew, Leo. He's learning the family business." Leo stepped forward, hand extended toward Elena instead of Lorenzo. "And who is this beautiful woman?" "My executive assistant," Lorenzo said, his tone flat. "Elena Calloway." She shook Leo's hand briefly, extracting her fingers the moment politeness allowed. Pleasure. Please have a seat. Can I get anyone coffee? I'll take whatever you're offering, Leo said, his smile too wide. Elena felt Lorenzo's attention sharpen beside her, a predator scenting blood. She kept her expression neutral. Coffee it is. Mr. Marchetti? Espresso if you have it. Of course. She moved to the sideboard where she'd already prepared the coffee service, grateful for the excuse to turn away from Leo's stare. Behind her, she heard Lorenzo begin the meeting, his voice carrying that particular edge that meant someone had annoyed him. Professional. She needed to stay professional. Leo was harmless, just another entitled rich kid who thought charm was a personality. She'd dealt with worse. She served the coffee, taking her seat beside Lorenzo with her tablet ready to take notes. The meeting proceeded through the usual preliminaries: project timelines, material costs, labor disputes that needed managing. Elena tracked everything, flagging items that would need follow-up, her fingers flying across the screen. You're very efficient, Leo said, leaning toward her. How long have you worked for Lorenzo? A month, she answered without looking up. Only a month? You seem very comfortable with each other. Ms. Calloway is excellent at her job, Lorenzo cut in, his tone brooking no further discussion. Antonio, regarding the Harbor Point development. But Leo wasn't finished. Maybe you could show me around the office later. I'd love to learn more about how Valenti Enterprises operates. Elena finally looked at him, taking in the expensive suit that didn't quite fit right, the watch that was too flashy, the cologne that was too strong. Everything about him screamed trying too hard. I'm sure Mr. Valenti can arrange a tour with someone from HR, she said politely. I'd prefer you. I'm afraid my schedule doesn't allow for it. Perhaps dinner then, tonight? The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Elena didn't need to look at Lorenzo to know his expression had gone cold. She could feel it radiating off him like frost. Leo, Antonio said sharply, focus. I'm just being friendly, Uncle. Be friendly on your own time. The older man's jaw tightened. Lorenzo, my apologies. Continue. The meeting limped forward, but Leo's attention kept drifting back to Elena. She felt each glance like a physical touch, intrusive and unwelcome. Twice more, he tried to engage her in conversation unrelated to business. Twice more, she deflected with professional courtesy that was becoming increasingly strained. By the time Antonio and Leo left, Elena's shoulders were tight with tension. She began gathering the coffee cups, needing something to do with her hands. Leave those. She glanced at Lorenzo, who stood at the window overlooking the city, his back to her. I don't mind. I said leave them. He turned, and the look on his face made her freeze. How many times did he ask you out? 3, technically, but it's not a big deal. Not a big deal. Lorenzo's laugh was humorless. He disrespected you in my conference room, in front of his uncle during a business meeting. Which part of that isn't a big deal? He's just some kid who doesn't know better. He's 28 years old and knows exactly what he's doing. Lorenzo moved toward her, each step deliberate. And you're making excuses for him. I'm being professional. You're being accommodating. There's a difference. Elena set down the cup she'd been holding, irritation flaring. What would you have me do? Make a scene? Embarrass Antonio? Jeopardize a deal worth millions because his nephew has poor social skills? I'd have you tell him no and mean it. I did tell him no. You told him your schedule didn't allow for it. That's not no. That's maybe later. Lorenzo stopped in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back. You gave him hope instead of boundaries. I gave him politeness, which is what you pay me for. I pay you to be my assistant, not his ego boost. Then maybe you should have said something instead of sitting there glaring at him. The words came out sharper than she'd intended, and silence fell between them. Lorenzo's eyes narrowed, and Elena realized she'd just snapped at her boss. Her very powerful, very dangerous boss, who probably wasn't used to being challenged. "You're right," he said finally. She blinked. "I'm sorry. What?" "You're right. I should have said something." His hand came up and she thought he might touch her face, but he just brushed past her to gather his own files. "I should have made it clear you were off limits the moment he looked at you like that." "Off limits," she repeated slowly. "Because I'm your employee. Because you're mine." There it was again, that possessive edge that should have alarmed her and didn't. Elena crossed her arms, studying him. "You keep saying that. Because it's true. I'm not a possession. No, you're a person who deserves better than being hit on by mediocre men during business meetings." He met her eyes. "And I'm the person who's going to make sure that doesn't happen again." "By doing what, exactly?" "By making my claim clear." The words sent heat through her despite the air conditioning. "Your claim." Did I stutter? "You're being ridiculous. We're not—" She gestured between them. "Anything. I work for you. That's all. Keep telling yourself that. It's the truth. The truth is, you haven't stopped thinking about this morning, about what I said in my office." He stepped closer, and she held her ground. "About how I know you better than he ever did." That was accurate, which is why it bothered you. His gaze dropped to her mouth, then back up. "You want to be seen, Elena. You want someone who doesn't ask permission to care about you. And you're terrified because you're starting to realize I'm that someone." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "You're my boss." "I'm aware. This is inappropriate." "Completely. I could sue you for harassment." "You could. You won't." He reached past her to grab his phone from the conference table, the movement bringing him close enough that she caught his scent again. "Because this isn't harassment. This is honesty, and you're starving for it." Elena opened her mouth to argue, but her phone buzzed insistently. She pulled it out, grateful for the interruption, then felt her stomach sink. "Ryan. I'm in the lobby. We need to talk." "No," she breathed. Lorenzo plucked the phone from her hand before she could stop him, reading the message with an expression that went from cold to glacial. "He's here." "Give me my phone." "Does he do this often? Show up at your workplace uninvited?" "He thinks he's being romantic." She reached for her phone, but Lorenzo held it out of reach. "Lorenzo, please. How many times has he done this?" "It doesn't matter." "How many times, Elena?" The command in his voice made her answer automatically. 4, 5 maybe. He came to my old office twice, then my apartment, then... She stopped, realizing how pathetic it sounded. "He just wants closure." "He wants control." Lorenzo handed back her phone, his jaw tight. "And you're going to give it to him. I'm going to talk to him like an adult and make it clear we're done." "You've already made that clear. He's not listening." "So, what do you suggest? I have security throw him out? That'll definitely make him leave me alone." "No, I'll handle it." Alarm bells rang in her head. "Handle it how?" "By making sure he understands you're not available." "Lorenzo." But he was already moving toward the door, and Elena had to scramble to follow him. They took the elevator down in tense silence, her mind racing through worst-case scenarios. She'd seen Lorenzo angry before. The cold, controlled fury he employed when someone tried to cheat him or break an agreement. She'd never seen that anger directed at someone on her behalf. The elevator doors opened onto the lobby, and there was Ryan, looking exactly like he always did. Perfectly styled blonde hair, expensive suit, confident smile that faltered when he saw her. "Elena, I was hoping to catch you before—" His gaze shifted to Lorenzo, and something flickered in his expression. Fear, maybe, or recognition. "Mr. Valenti, I didn't realize you'd be—" "You're trespassing," Lorenzo said flatly. Ryan's smile became strained. I'm just here to talk to Elena. It's personal. Ms. Calloway is working. If you need to discuss personal matters, you can call her. Outside of business hours. At a number she chooses to give you. With all due respect, this doesn't concern you. Everything that happens in this building concerns me. Lorenzo moved forward, not threatening, but somehow making Ryan step back anyway. And you're making my assistant uncomfortable. So I'll ask you once, politely. Leave. Elena. Ryan looked past Lorenzo, desperation creeping into his voice. Just 5 minutes, please. I came all the way downtown. She said no, Lorenzo cut in. I didn't hear her say anything. She deleted your text without responding. She didn't open your gift. She hasn't returned your calls in 6 months. Lorenzo's voice dropped lower, dangerous. How many times does a woman need to say no before you hear it? Color flooded Ryan's face. This is between me and Elena. This is between you and security if you don't leave in the next 30 seconds. Elena watched the standoff, torn between embarrassment and something that felt uncomfortably like gratitude. Ryan was looking at her now, really looking, and she saw the moment he registered what was happening. Are you serious? Ryan's laugh was ugly. You're with him? You left me for... He gestured at Lorenzo. For this? She didn't leave you for anyone, Lorenzo said, his tone like ice. She left you because you weren't worth staying for. Now get out of my building. Elena, come on. You can't honestly... I can honestly ask you to leave, she said, finding her voice. I've been asking you to leave me alone for 6 months. Stop calling. Stop texting. Stop sending gifts. We're done, Ryan. We've been done. Because of him? Because of you. Because you never listened to what I wanted. Because you made decisions for me and called it caring. Because... She stopped, realizing she was saying everything she should have said 6 months ago. Because I was never happy with you, and I'm tired of pretending otherwise. Ryan stared at her like she'd slapped him. I gave you everything. You gave me everything you thought I should want. That's not the same thing. Security was approaching now, 2 large men in suits who looked at Lorenzo for direction. He nodded once, and they flanked Ryan. Mr. Harrison, one of them said. Time to go. Ryan looked between Elena and Lorenzo, his expression twisting. You'll regret this, both of you. Is that a threat? Lorenzo asked, almost conversationally. It's a promise. Ryan shrugged off the security guard's hands. I know people. Important people. You think you can just... I think I can do whatever I want in my own building, and what I want is you gone. Lorenzo's smile was sharp. Permanently. You're banned from this property. If you come back, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. If you contact Ms. Calloway again, I'll make it my personal mission to ensure every firm in Boston knows you're a liability. Am I clear? The threat hung in the air, and Elena saw Ryan realize he was outmatched. Whatever connections he thought he had, they were nothing compared to Lorenzo's reach. Fine, Ryan spat. She's not worth it anyway. He left, security escorting him to the door, and Elena stood in the lobby feeling like she'd just survived a hurricane. Around them, employees pretended not to stare while absolutely staring. My office, Lorenzo said quietly. Now. She followed him back to the elevator, acutely aware of the whispers starting behind them. By tomorrow, the entire building would know. By next week, it would be all over their professional circles. The elevator ride up felt longer than the ride down. Lorenzo stood in the corner, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. Elena tried to think of something to say. Thank you, or that was unnecessary, or please don't ruin my ex-boyfriend's career, but nothing felt adequate. They reached his office, and he held the door open for her. She walked in, and he closed it behind them with a decisive click. That was, she started, necessary. I was going to say dramatic, also accurate. He moved to his desk, loosening his tie with sharp movements. He threatened you. He was just upset. He threatened you, Lorenzo repeated, his voice hard. In my building, in front of me. Do you understand what that means? That you have a hero complex? That you're under my protection now, whether you want it or not. Elena's breath caught. I can handle Ryan. You shouldn't have to. That's not your decision to make. You're right, it's not. He turned to face her fully. But I made it anyway, and I'm not apologizing. You can't just... She gestured helplessly. Claim people. That's not how the world works. It's how my world works. Well, I don't live in your world. You do now. He moved closer, and she backed up until her legs hit the couch. You work for me. You're in my building. You're under my protection. That makes you part of my world whether you accept it or not. This is insane. This is honest. Which is what you wanted, remember? She did remember. She remembered his words from this morning, about being seen, about being tired of safe. She remembered the way her pulse had quickened, the way something in her had responded to his possessiveness, even as her brain screamed warnings. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now you decide if you're going to keep fighting what you want, or if you're brave enough to take it. And if what I want is professional boundaries and a normal working relationship. His smile was slow and dangerous. Then you're a better liar than I gave you credit for. Her phone buzzed, then again, then continuously, a string of texts that made both of them look down at the screen visible in her hand. They were all from Ryan's number, angry, pleading, threatening, desperate, a cascade of messages that proved exactly how little he'd listened to anything she'd said. Lorenzo took the phone gently from her hand, scrolled through the messages with an expression that went darker with each one, then made a call. Marco, I need you to handle something. Elena listened as he rattled off Ryan's information, her address, the harassment timeline. Professional, efficient, and absolutely terrifying in its implications. When he hung up, she asked, What did you just do? Ensured he won't bother you again. How? Do you really want to know? She thought about it. About Ryan's threats, his entitlement, his complete inability to hear the word no. About 6 months of trying to be nice, to be understanding, to handle it herself. No, she said finally. I don't. Good. Lorenzo handed back her phone. Block his number. If he finds another way to contact you, tell me immediately. Is this what it's like, working for you? This is what it's like being mine. There was that word again. Mine. Possessive and absolute and completely inappropriate for a boss to say to his employee. Elena should have been angry. Should have been planning her resignation letter. Should have been anything except what she was. Breathless and terrified, and desperately curious about what came next. I should get back to work, she managed. You should. Neither of them moved. Outside, the snow had stopped, leaving the city crystalline and clean. Inside, the air felt charged, like the moment before lightning struck. Lorenzo, go, Elena, before I do something we'll both regret. She went, closing his door behind her, and made it exactly 3 steps before her legs started shaking. She leaned against the wall, pressing her palm to her chest where her heart hammered like it was trying to escape. Her phone buzzed one more time. She looked down, expecting another message from Ryan's number. Instead, it was from Lorenzo. Dinner. Friday night. My place. Not a request. Elena stared at the message, then at his closed door, then back at the message. She should say no. Should maintain those boundaries she kept insisting on. Should do anything, except what her fingers were already typing. What time? The response was immediate. 7. I'll send a car. She pocketed her phone and walked back to her office on unsteady legs, very carefully not thinking about what she'd just agreed to. Friday arrived with the inevitability of a storm Elena had watched building on the horizon all week. She'd spent the intervening days trying to convince herself that dinner with Lorenzo was just dinner, a professional courtesy, maybe even an apology for the scene with Ryan. Her brain knew better. Her body definitely knew better, given how her pulse jumped every time he walked past her desk. The car arrived at 6:45, sleek and black, with a driver who opened the door without a word. Elena had changed 3 times before settling on a navy dress that was elegant without trying too hard. Professional enough to maintain the illusion this wasn't what it obviously was. Lorenzo's building was in the North End, all old brick and new money, the kind of place where the doorman knew your name and your business. The penthouse elevator required a key, which the driver provided before disappearing back to the car. The doors opened directly into Lorenzo's apartment, and Elena stepped into a space that was somehow exactly what she'd expected, and nothing like it. Exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor, furniture that managed to be both comfortable and expensive. But there were also books, actual physical books lining built-in shelves, their spines worn like they'd been read multiple times. And photographs, small frames scattered on surfaces, showing people who had to be family based on the resemblance. "You're early," Lorenzo said, emerging from what she assumed was the kitchen. He'd changed too. Dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, no tie. Casual in a way she'd never seen him. "Your driver was efficient. I pay him to be." He moved closer, and she caught the scent of garlic and wine and something else cooking. "You look beautiful." "You said dinner. I dressed for dinner." "You dressed to keep me at a distance." His smile was knowing. "It won't work." Confident. Honest. He gestured toward the kitchen. "Come, everything's almost ready." She followed him into a space that was clearly designed for someone who actually cooked, not just reheated takeout. Lorenzo moved around it with easy familiarity, checking something in the oven, stirring a pot on the stove. "You cook?" she said, unable to hide her surprise. "My mother would disown me if I didn't. Sit." He nodded toward the island where 2 glasses of wine were already waiting. Elena perched on a stool, watching him work. It was strange seeing him like this, domestic, almost relaxed. The Lorenzo she knew from the office was all sharp edges and controlled power. This version moved with the same confidence but less armor. "Why did you really invite me here?" she asked. "To feed you, Lorenzo. To show you something." He plated what looked like homemade pasta with a sauce that smelled incredible. "That I'm not just your boss. That this," he gestured between them, "is more than a professional relationship. We don't have a relationship. We have something. You feel it every time I walk past your desk. Every time our hands touch passing files. Every time you look at me and forget what you were saying." He set the plate in front of her, then his own, settling onto the stool beside her instead of across, close enough that his knee brushed hers. "Stop pretending you don't." Elena took a bite of pasta to avoid responding. It was perfect. Al dente with a sauce that was rich without being heavy, complex in a way that spoke of hours of preparation. "This is incredible," she admitted. "My grandmother's recipe. She made me learn it before she'd teach me anything about the business." His expression softened slightly. Said a man who couldn't feed himself wasn't worth trusting with the family. "Smart woman. Terrifying woman. You'd like her." They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes, and Elena felt some of her tension ease. This was just dinner, just 2 people sharing a meal. Nothing more complicated than, "Tell me about Ryan," Lorenzo said. The tension snapped back. "Why?" "Because I want to understand what kind of man you thought you wanted. I didn't think I wanted him, I just..." She set down her fork. "He was safe, predictable, the kind of guy who made sense on paper. But not in practice. Not in anything." She took a sip of wine. surprised by how easy it was to talk about. He had our entire future planned before we'd been dating 6 months. Where we'd live, how many kids we'd have, what kind of car I'd drive. And when I said I wasn't sure about any of it, he acted like I was being difficult. You were being honest. He called it commitment issues. He called it that because he couldn't handle that you wanted something different than what he'd decided for you. Lorenzo's hand found hers on the counter, his thumb tracing her knuckles. You don't have commitment issues, Elena. You have a problem with men who don't listen. And you're different? I'm paying attention to everything you're not saying. His gaze held hers. Like how you tense up every time I get too close, but you don't move away. How you argue with me, but you never actually tell me to stop. How you look at me when you think I'm not watching, like you're trying to figure out if I'm real. Her breath caught. That's true, all of it. He stood, taking their empty plates to the sink. I see you, Elena. The parts you show everyone, and the parts you hide. And I want all of it. She should leave. Should thank him for dinner and call a car and put distance between herself and whatever this was becoming. Instead, she found herself following him to the living room, accepting the fresh glass of wine he offered, settling onto the couch that was somehow the most comfortable thing she'd ever sat on. What happened with Ryan's messages? She asked. He won't be sending any more. What did you do? Had a conversation with his employer about their harassment policies. Lorenzo sat beside her, close but not touching. Turns out they take a dim view of employees who stalk women. He's been put on administrative leave pending an investigation. Elena's eyes widened. You got him suspended? I gave his company information about his behavior. They made their own decision. His expression was unapologetic. He threatened you. There are consequences for that. That's... She didn't know if she was horrified or relieved. Extreme. That's proportional. He spent 6 months making you uncomfortable. Now he gets to spend some time understanding what consequences feel like. You can't just ruin people's careers because they annoy you. I didn't ruin his career. His own actions did that. Lorenzo's hand came up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, in a gesture that was becoming familiar. And you're not annoyed, Elena. You're scared. There's a difference. She wanted to argue, but the words stuck in her throat. He was right. Ryan's escalation over the past few weeks had frightened her more than she'd admitted to anyone, including herself. Thank you, she said quietly. You don't need to thank me for basic decency. Most people wouldn't consider getting someone suspended basic decency. Most people aren't me. His fingers lingered near her face, and she found herself leaning into the touch. And most people don't care about you the way I do. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you take your coffee with too much sugar and not enough cream. I know you bite your lip when you're thinking. I know you're brilliant at reading people, but terrible at asking for what you want. I know you deserve better than every man who came before me. The words should have sounded arrogant. Instead, they sounded like truth, and Elena felt something crack open in her chest. This is a bad idea, she whispered. Probably. You're my boss. I'm aware. I could lose my job. You won't. His hand slid to cup her jaw, tilting her face toward his. But if it bothers you that much, I'll have HR transfer you to a different department. Same salary, same benefits, different supervisor. She blinked. You'd do that? I'd do a lot of things to make you comfortable, but I won't pretend I don't want you. His thumb brushed her lower lip, and heat flooded through her. And I won't let you pretend you don't want this. Lorenzo. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle or tentative or anything like the careful kisses Ryan used to give her. It was claiming and demanding and absolutely certain, his mouth moving against hers like he'd been thinking about this for weeks. Maybe he had. Maybe they both had. Elena's hands came up to his chest, and she wasn't sure if she meant to push him away or pull him closer. Her body decided for her, fingers curling into his shirt as she kissed him back with 6 months of pent-up frustration and 3 weeks of building tension. His other hand slid into her hair, angling her head to deepen the kiss, and she made a sound she'd be embarrassed about later. Right now, she couldn't bring herself to care. Right now, all that mattered was the heat of his mouth and the solid weight of him and the way he kissed her like she was something precious and dangerous all at once. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lorenzo's eyes were dark with want. "Still think this is a bad idea?" he asked, his voice rough. "The worst." But she didn't let go of his shirt. "Good." He stood, pulling her up with him. "Then let's make it worse." He led her down the hallway to his bedroom, and Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. This was happening. This was really happening. She should stop it, should think about consequences and complications, and all the reasons this was insane. Instead, she let him pull her inside and close the door. The kiss this time was slower, more deliberate, his hands mapping her body through the fabric of her dress. She tugged at his shirt, and he helped her remove it, revealing the kind of body that came from actual physical work, not just gym memberships. Scars, too. Thin lines across his ribs, a puckered mark on his shoulder that looked like it might have been a bullet wound once. "Hazards of the family business," he said, catching her staring. "Does it hurt?" "Not anymore." He found the zipper of her dress, lowering it with agonizing slowness. "This, though. This might kill me." The dress pooled at her feet, and Elena stood in just her underwear, feeling more exposed than she'd ever been. Not because of the lack of clothes, but because of the way he looked at her. Like he was memorizing every detail, every curve, every imperfection. "Perfect," he murmured. "I'm not." "You are." His hands spanned her waist, then slid up to cup her breasts through her bra. "Stop arguing." She would have, but then his mouth was on her neck, teeth grazing the sensitive spot below her ear, and coherent thought became impossible. He walked her backward to the bed, and she went willingly, pulling him down with her. What followed was a lesson in the difference between having sex and being consumed. Lorenzo touched her like he owned her, commanded her like he had every right to, and Elena discovered she liked it. Liked the way he told her to stay still when she squirmed. Liked the way he pinned her wrists above her head when she reached for him. Liked the way he made her ask for what she wanted instead of just giving it to her. "Look at me," he ordered when her eyes fluttered closed and she obeyed, meeting his gaze as he... The rest blurred into sensation and heat, and the kind of pleasure that rewrote her understanding of her own body. When it was over, when they lay tangled in sheets that had somehow ended up half on the floor, Elena felt the reality of what they'd done start to creep in. "Don't," Lorenzo said, pulling her closer. "Don't what?" "Don't start overthinking this. Too late." But she didn't pull away. "We just complicated everything. We simplified it. Now I don't have to pretend I'm not thinking about you every second of every day. Lorenzo, stay." His arm tightened around her waist. "Tonight, stay." She should leave. Should go home and figure out what this meant and how to handle Monday morning. Should do anything except what she was doing, which was settling into his warmth and closing her eyes. "Just tonight," she murmured. "We'll start with that." She fell asleep to the sound of his heartbeat, steady and sure, and tried not to think about how right it felt. Morning came too early, sunlight streaming through windows Lorenzo had apparently forgotten to cover. Elena woke slowly, awareness returning in pieces. The unfamiliar bed, the muscular arm draped over her waist, the soreness in places that reminded her exactly what they'd done. She tried to slip out without waking him, but his arm tightened. "Where are you going?" His voice was rough with sleep. Home. I need to. She gestured vaguely. Think. Think here. Lorenzo, I can't just. He rolled her onto her back, settling his weight over her in a way that was possessive and entirely too distracting. In the morning light, she could see the scratches she'd left on his shoulders, angry red lines that made her face heat. Sorry, she mumbled. Don't be. He looked entirely too pleased about them. They're proof. Of what? That you're mine now. His mouth found the side of her neck, and she felt him smile against her skin. And that I made sure you'll remember it. She pushed at his chest half-heartedly. I need to go home. I need clothes and... She caught sight of herself in the mirror across the room and froze. Oh my God. Her neck was covered in marks. Not subtle marks. Obvious, deliberate, impossible to hide marks that screamed exactly what she'd been doing and with whom. Lorenzo! She shoved him off, scrambling to the mirror to get a better look. What did you do? Marked you. He leaned back against the headboard, completely unrepentant. So everyone knows you're taken. Everyone? I can't... She touched the darkest mark, right where her pulse hammered. I can't go to work like this. So don't go to work. Stay here. I have meetings. She spun to face him. Did you do this on purpose? Yes. The simple admission made her speechless. He'd marked her deliberately, knowing exactly what it would mean, what it would look like, how impossible it would be to hide. You're insane, she breathed. I'm clear about what I want. There's a difference. He stood, moving toward her with predatory grace. You're mine, Elena. I want everyone to know it, including you. This isn't... She backed up until she hit the mirror. This isn't how normal relationships work. Good thing I'm not interested in normal. He caged her in, hands on either side of her head. You said you were tired of safe, of predictable, of men who didn't see you. Well, I see you. All of you. And I'm not letting you run away because you're scared of what that means. Her phone buzzed from somewhere in the living room, the sound jarring in the tense silence. Then it buzzed again, and again. Lorenzo's expression darkened. Stay here. He left, returning a moment later with her phone. The screen showed a string of notifications, all from the same source, the office group chat. Elena's stomach dropped as she read the messages. Julia, reception. OMG, did anyone else see Lorenzo leave with Elena last night? Mark, accounting. Leave where? Julia, his building. I was walking my dog and saw them. Sarah, legal. You're kidding. Julia, I'm not. They were definitely together. Mark, holy shit. Sarah, this is going to be a problem. There were more. Speculation and gossip and wild theories, each message making her chest tighter. By Monday, everyone would know. By Tuesday, it would be a full-blown scandal. Elena, Lorenzo's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. This is a disaster. She looked up at him, feeling panic claw at her throat. Everyone knows. Everyone's talking about us. I'm going to be that woman who slept with her boss, and you're going to be... the man who claimed you. Yes. He took the phone from her hands, setting it aside. Let them talk. Let them? Lorenzo, my reputation will be fine, because I'm going to make it very clear that you're not just someone I'm sleeping with. You're mine. My partner. My... He seemed to search for the right word. Everything. The declaration should have terrified her. Instead, it made something warm unfurl in her chest, dangerous and tempting. You can't just decide that, she whispered. I already did. The question is whether you're brave enough to accept it. Elena looked at him, at the man who'd defended her against Ryan, who'd cooked her dinner, who'd marked her skin like a brand and looked proud of it. The man who saw through every defense she'd built and wanted her anyway. She thought about safe, about predictable, about Ryan and every other man who tried to fit her into a shape that suited them. Then she thought about Lorenzo, who looked at her like she was both the question and the answer. "I need time," she said finally. Something flickered in his expression. Disappointment, maybe, or understanding. "How much time?" "I don't know, a day, a week. I need to—" She gestured helplessly. "Figure out what this means." "It means you're mine and I'm yours. That's all it needs to mean. For you, maybe. For me, it's more complicated." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay. Take your time. But Elena?" He caught her chin, making her meet his eyes. "I'm not going anywhere. And neither are those marks. So while you're thinking, remember who put them there. Remember how it felt. Remember that you're mine whether you admit it or not." He called her a car, watched her dress in last night's clothes, kissed her at the door like he was memorizing the taste of her mouth. And Elena left, feeling the weight of his claim in every mark on her skin, in every whispered conversation she'd face at work, in every beat of her racing heart. She'd wanted to be seen, wanted to be claimed, wanted something real and dangerous and impossible to ignore. She'd gotten exactly what she asked for. Now she just had to figure out if she was brave enough to keep it. The weekend passed in a blur of overthinking and strategic concealer application. Elena had called in sick Monday, unable to face the office gossip with Lorenzo's marks still visible on her neck. By Tuesday, they'd faded enough that a scarf could hide them, and she'd run out of excuses. The whispers started the moment she stepped off the elevator. Julia from reception gave her a knowing look. Mark from accounting smirked. Sarah from legal pulled her aside in the break room with a concerned expression that was worse than the gossip. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked, voice low. "Because if he pressured you into anything, we can go to HR together. You don't have to." "He didn't pressure me." Elena's voice came out sharper than intended. "I made my own choice." "Elena, he's your boss. The power dynamic alone is something I'm aware of. But thank you for your concern." She grabbed her coffee and left before Sarah could continue the well-meaning interrogation. Lorenzo's office door was closed when she passed, and she felt a pang of something she refused to name. Relief, maybe, or disappointment. She hadn't spoken to him since Saturday morning, had ignored his 2 text messages asking if she was all right. She wasn't all right. She was confused and scared and still feeling the ghost of his hands on her skin. The morning crawled by. Elena buried herself in work, responding to emails and reviewing contracts with single-minded focus. If she didn't think about Lorenzo, about the marks that had finally faded, about the way he'd looked at her like she was something worth claiming, then maybe— "Elena." His voice came from directly behind her desk. She jumped, spinning her chair to find him standing there in a charcoal suit that should be illegal. His expression was carefully neutral, but his eyes held questions. "Mr. Moretti." The formality tasted wrong on her tongue. Something flickered across his face. "My office. Now." It wasn't a request. Elena followed him inside, hyper-aware of the eyes tracking their movement. He closed the door behind them, and the click of the lock felt final. "You've been avoiding me," he said. "I've been thinking. For 3 days. It's a complicated situation. It's only complicated if you make it that way." He moved closer, and she held her ground. "I told you to take your time. I didn't tell you to disappear. I needed space. You needed an excuse to run." His hand came up to her face, thumb tracing where the darkest mark had been. "Did you come to any conclusions?" Elena's breath caught. This close, she could smell his cologne, could see the faint shadows under his eyes that suggested he'd slept as poorly as she had. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Of me? Of this?" of what it means, of everyone thinking I slept my way into what? You earned your position here long before I touched you. Anyone who suggests otherwise will answer to me. His voice was hard. And if you're worried about appearances, I meant what I said. I'll have you transferred. Different department, different supervisor, same everything else. That's not... She shook her head. That's not the point. Then what is? The point is that you're intense and possessive and you marked me like I was property. The point is that I barely know you outside of work. The point is that this could blow up in both our faces and I don't... Her voice cracked. I don't know if I can handle that. Lorenzo was quiet for a long moment. Then he stepped back, giving her space she hadn't asked for. You're right, he said. I moved too fast. I pushed too hard. I saw what I wanted, and I took it without considering that you might need more time to catch up. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. But I'm not going to apologize for wanting you. And I'm not going to pretend those marks were a mistake. You're mine, Elena. You have been since the moment you walked into my office 6 months ago and looked at me like you could see past the reputation to the man underneath. Lorenzo? But if you need me to prove that this is more than just physical, that I see you as more than someone to claim, then I'll do that. Dinner with my family. Sunday. Let them meet you. Let you see who I am when I'm not your boss, or the man trying to get you into bed. Let you decide if this is something you want when you have all the information. Elena stared at him. You want me to meet your family? I want you to understand what you mean to me. My family is how I do that. That's terrifying, overwhelming, exactly what she needed to hear. Okay. His expression shifted, surprise giving way to something warmer. Okay? Sunday dinner. I'll be there. She took a breath. But Lorenzo, if I do this, if I choose this, I need you to understand something too. I'm not property. I'm not someone you own. I'm your equal, or I'm nothing. You're my equal. He closed the distance between them again, but this time his touch was gentle, reverent. You've always been my equal. The marks weren't about ownership. They were about making sure you remembered me, making sure you couldn't pretend Friday night didn't happen. I couldn't forget if I tried. Good. He kissed her then, soft and sweet, and nothing like the claiming kiss from Friday. This was a promise, a beginning. Sunday, 6 o'clock, I'll pick you up. I can drive myself. You could, but you won't. His smile was knowing. Because you're done running, aren't you? She was. God help her, she was. Sunday arrived with the weight of inevitability. Elena changed 4 times before settling on a burgundy dress that was elegant without being too formal, appropriate for meeting the family of a man who'd marked her neck and stolen her common sense. Lorenzo picked her up at 5:45, punctual as always, looking unfairly good in dark jeans and a black sweater that made him seem younger, more approachable. Nervous? He asked as they drove toward his mother's house in the North End. Terrified. Don't be. They'll love you. You can't know that. I can. Because I do. And they trust my judgment. He said it casually, like he hadn't just dropped a bomb into the car. Elena's head snapped toward him. What? You heard me. He didn't look away from the road, but his hand found hers. I'm not going to pretend this is casual, Elena. I'm not built that way. You're it for me. The question is whether I'm it for you. Her throat tightened. You're insane. You keep saying that. It doesn't make it less true. The house was warm brick and glowing windows, the kind of place that promised loud conversations and too much food. Lorenzo led her inside without knocking, and immediately they were engulfed in chaos. Lorenzo, finally! A woman who had to be his mother appeared, all dark hair and sharp eyes and warm smile. And you brought... She looked at Elena with open curiosity. Her. Mama, this is Elena. Elena, my mother, Rosa. The one from work. Rosa's smile widened. The one you won't stop talking about. Mama? What? You call me 3 times a week to discuss this woman. I'm allowed to mention it. She pulled Elena into a hug that smelled like garlic and wine. Welcome, Bella. Come, meet everyone before they eat everything. The dining room was chaos incarnate. At least 10 people crowded around a table that groaned under the weight of food, all talking over each other in a mix of English and Italian. Lorenzo introduced her to his father, his 2 brothers, their wives, his sister, and his grandmother, who looked her up and down with shrewd eyes. She's too skinny, the grandmother announced in accented English. Feed her, Lorenzo. I'm working on it, Nonna. Work harder. Dinner was loud and overwhelming and somehow exactly right. They asked her questions about her work, her family, her intentions toward Lorenzo, which made her choke on her wine. His mother told embarrassing stories about Lorenzo as a child. His brothers teased him mercilessly. His sister asked pointed questions about whether Elena understood what she was getting into. Through it all, Lorenzo's hand stayed on her knee under the table, steady and grounding. He didn't try to control the conversation or protect her from his family's scrutiny. He just let her be herself, jumping in only when his brothers got too obnoxious. So, his mother said during a lull in conversation, when's the wedding? Mama, Lorenzo's voice held warning. What? I'm not allowed to ask? We've been dating for a week, Elena said, amused despite herself. A week? 6 months? What's the difference? When you know, you know. Rosa looked at her son. And Lorenzo knows. The certainty in her voice made Elena's chest tight. She looked at Lorenzo, found him watching her with an expression that confirmed everything his mother had said. He knew. He'd known for months. And somehow, impossibly, Elena was starting to know too. After dinner, Lorenzo walked her out to his car, while his family waved from the doorway like they'd already adopted her. That was... Elena searched for words. Intense. That was them being subtle. Wait until they really like you. They don't really like me now? Now they're just deciding if you're good enough for me. Once they decide yes, you'll never have a moment's peace. He opened her door, but caught her hand before she could get in. What did you think? I think your family is wonderful. I think your mother is terrifying. I think your grandmother is going to force-feed me every time I visit. She smiled. I think I want to come back. Something in his expression cracked open. Yeah? Yeah. She reached up, cupping his face. Take me home, Lorenzo. You're home. The drive back to his apartment was charged with anticipation. Neither of them spoke, but his hand stayed on her thigh, possessive and sure. When they reached his building, he didn't bother with pretense, just pulled her into the elevator and kissed her until the doors opened on his floor. Inside his apartment, he was less controlled than Friday, more demanding. His hands mapped her body like he was reclaiming territory, and Elena let him, arching into his touch. Say it, he commanded against her mouth. Say what? That you're mine. She gasped as his teeth found her neck. Yours. Again. I'm yours, Lorenzo. I'm yours. He lifted her then, carrying her to the bedroom like she weighed nothing. The dress came off, then his clothes, and then there was just skin and heat and the delicious weight of him over her. Look at me, he ordered, and she did, meeting his eyes as he moved inside her. Don't look away. I want to see everything. She couldn't have looked away if she tried. Couldn't do anything except hold on as he took her apart piece by piece. His voice in her ear telling her exactly what he wanted, exactly how she felt, exactly what he planned to do to her. When it was over, when they lay tangled in sheets that had somehow ended up on the floor again, Elena felt the last of her resistance crumble. "I love you," she said into the darkness. His arms tightened around her. "Say it again. I love you. I'm terrified, and this is insane, and I love you. I love you too." He rolled her onto her back, settling over her with a smile that was pure male satisfaction. "And you're not getting away from me now. Wouldn't dream of it." He proved his point thoroughly, and by the time Elena woke the next morning, her body bore new evidence of his claim. Marks on her inner thighs, her hip bones, the curve of her breast. Places only he would see. Private reminders of exactly who she belonged to. She was sore in the best way, muscles protesting as she stretched. Lorenzo watched from beside her, propped on one elbow, looking entirely too pleased with himself. "Morning," he said. "You're smug." "I have reason to be." His hand traced the mark on her hip. "These are better than the neck ones. Private." Still possessive. Always. He kissed her shoulder. "Move in with me." Elena blinked. "What?" "Move in. You're here half the time anyway. And I want to wake up to you every morning. Lorenzo, that's what you want too. Stop overthinking it." He rolled out of bed, completely unself-conscious in his nakedness. "I'll make breakfast. You figure out how to say yes." He left, and Elena lay in his bed, surrounded by the evidence of their night together, and realized he was right. She did want this. Wanted him. Wanted the chaos of his family and the intensity of his attention and the certainty of his love. She found him in the kitchen, making eggs and coffee like this was already their routine. Like she'd already said yes. "Okay," she said. He turned, spatula in hand. "Okay? I'll move in, but I'm keeping my apartment for 6 months, just in case." "In case of what?" "In case you drive me crazy." His smile was knowing. "I'm going to drive you crazy. That's not a reason to keep an escape route." "It's the only reason." "Fine. Keep your apartment. You won't need it." He pulled her close, kissing her until she forgot why she'd wanted the safety net in the first place. "But you're mine, Elena. In 6 months, in 6 years, in 60 years. You're mine, and I'm yours, and that's not changing." She believed him. Against all logic and common sense, she believed him. 3 months later, Elena's apartment sat empty while she lived in Lorenzo's space that had become their space. Her clothes hung in his closet. Her books filled his shelves. Her coffee mug sat next to his every morning. Work had adjusted. She'd transferred to a different department at her insistence, reporting to someone else while still collaborating with Lorenzo on major projects. The gossip had died down once people realized this wasn't a fling. That Lorenzo Moretti had found his match and had no intention of letting her go. Sunday dinners at his mother's house became routine. Rosa had indeed decided Elena was good enough, which meant constant invitations and unsolicited advice and warm hugs that felt like coming home. The grandmother still insisted she was too skinny, but had started teaching her family recipes, which Elena suspected was the highest form of approval. On a Tuesday evening in early fall, Lorenzo came home with a small box in his pocket and determination in his eyes. They'd talked about the future in abstract terms: marriage, children, growing old together. But he was done with abstract. He found her in the kitchen, attempting his grandmother's sauce recipe with mixed results. She looked up when he entered, face flushed from the heat of the stove, and his heart clenched with how much he loved her. "How's it going?" he asked. "I think I broke it. Is sauce supposed to be this thick?" "Not usually." He moved behind her, arms wrapping around her waist, chin on her shoulder. "Marry me." Elena froze. "What?" "Marry me. Be my wife. Let me spend the rest of my life proving I'm worth the risk you took." He turned her to face him, pulling out the box. I love you. I'm not asking because I think I own you, or because I want to claim you. I'm asking because I want to build a life with you. Because you're my equal and my partner and my everything. Elena looked at the ring, simple and elegant and perfect, then at him. Tears gathered in her eyes. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. He slid the ring onto her finger, then kissed her like he was sealing a vow. Like she was the answer to every question he'd ever asked. The sauce burned on the stove. Neither of them cared. They'd found something rare and real and worth fighting for. Something that started with possession and grew into partnership. Something that looked like forever. And Elena, who'd spent so long playing it safe, had finally found exactly what she'd been looking for in the most dangerous place possible. In the arms of a man who saw her completely and loved her anyway. If you enjoyed Lorenzo and Elena's story, subscribe to Mafia Tales for more dangerous romances where powerful men meet their match. Join our members area for exclusive extended scenes and early access to new stories.